The largest animal that has ever lived is in the ocean right now. The blue whale. As long as 3 school buses, close to 200 tons, it looks built for the sea and nothing else. It wasn't. 50 million years ago, its ancestor walked on 4 legs, a furred hunter the size of a wolf, hooves on its toes. It lived on a shore in what is now Pakistan. In 1981, a man named Philip Gingerich dug its skull out of that hillside. He read it as a land predator. He was wrong. He was holding the oldest whale ever found. It would take 20 years to prove it. Today we trace the strangest journey in the fossil record. Picture any whale: a blue whale, an orca, a sperm whale. Every one of them came from a land animal, a 4-legged mammal that walked beside a sea that no longer exists. This codex follows that walk, back to where it began. One animal, its name is Pakicetus, what it was, why it left the land, and the single ankle bone that took science 20 years to read right. By the end, the real question isn't how a land animal became a whale. It's stranger than that. Why give up the land at all? What was the ocean offering that was worth losing its legs for? Before we go anywhere prehistoric, start with the animal alive today. A blue whale is the largest animal that has ever existed, bigger than any dinosaur. It reaches 30 meters long. Its tongue alone can weigh as much as an elephant. And buried deep inside that body, floating in muscle, are 2 small bones. They touch nothing. They attach to no spine. They are hip bones, leftover legs. The largest animal on Earth still carries the hardware of a land animal it stopped being 50 million years ago. Hold on to that. Now wind the clock back to the early Eocene. 50 million years ago. India is still an island, drifting slowly toward Asia. Between them sits the Tethys Sea, warm, shallow, thick with fish. Along its rivers, in what is now Pakistan, lives a furred mammal about the size of a wolf. 4 long legs, a long snout, a mouth of sharp teeth, and hooves, not claws, on its toes. By every outward measure, a land animal. It runs, it hunts along the rivers and the shore. It drinks fresh water. It has never seen the open ocean. Nothing on the outside hints at what it will become, except for the skull. The eyes sit high and close set, near the top of the head, angled up more than out. On its own, that might mean little. A land hunter keeping watch on what moves above it. But the ear gives it away. The bone around the inner ear is strangely thick and dense. It forms a wall of bone that in the entire animal kingdom belongs to one group, whales. This riverbank hunter already carried a whale's ear, and it carried it while still walking on 4 legs. That is the puzzle this codex sets out to answer. It is the same one Gingerich was standing on in 1981 without knowing it. What turns a 4-legged hunter on the Tethys shore into the largest animal the planet has ever built? There is a problem with calling Pakicetus a whale. Almost nothing else about it looks like one. When Gingerich and his colleague Donald Russell described it in 1981, they had mostly a skull, a handful of teeth, and that strange ear. The teeth were a predator's, built to chew. The skull rode on a neck that could turn, something no whale alive can do. Every visible feature said the same thing, a hoofed land mammal that ran down prey near the water. Later, fuller skeletons confirmed it. This was mostly a land animal, no more amphibious than a tapir. Everything pointed to land. Everything except the ear. Here is why the ear matters. In water, sound does not reach you the way it does in air. It travels through your bones. Whales solved this with a thick, dense shell of bone wrapped around the inner ear. Scientists call it the involucrum. No land mammal has it. No fish has it. Only whales. and Pakicetus had it, fully formed, 50 million years ago, while it was still walking on 4 legs. It could already hear like a whale before it could swim like one. This is the part most documentaries skip past. Evolution did not build the whale from the outside in. It did not start with flippers and a smooth body and work inward. It started on the inside, with an ear tuned for a world the animal had not entered yet. The body was still a land mammal's. The hearing was already committed to the sea. The ear was the first clue that the outside of this animal was lying about its future. It was not the last. And then the body began to follow the ear. Within a few million years of Pakicetus, the fossil record fills with in-between animals. The clearest is Ambulocetus. The name means walking whale. It was a 3-meter ambush hunter. Short, powerful legs, broad, webbed feet. Picture a furred crocodile wading in a shallow estuary. Jan Thewesen described it in 1994. He also found the chemical proof of the move. His team read oxygen isotopes locked inside the fossil teeth. The signal was clear. These early whales started out drinking fresh river water. Then, generation by generation, they shifted to the salt of the open Tethys. There was a clue in the jaw too, a channel built to hold a pad of fat carrying sound through the bone to that same whale-tuned ear. The next animal in the sequence, Pakicetus, went further still. Its legs had shrunk. Its tail had thickened into something that could drive it through water. So here is the hard question. Why leave the land at all? It had served this lineage for millions of years. The best answer is opportunity. And this part is an inference from ecology, not a fact written into the bone. The Eocene coastlines were crowded with fish. They were nearly empty of large predators competing for them. An animal that could hear underwater had an edge. An animal that could ambush from the shallows had the whole table to itself. Every small step toward the water paid for itself in food. And over enough generations, the legs that carried the lineage onto land became the thing slowing it down. The body kept rebuilding itself for the water. Then it broke the textbook, and that is exactly where paleontologists stop agreeing. Here is the part the textbook keeps getting wrong. By around 38 million years ago, whales were fully aquatic. The biggest was Basilosaurus. It stretched 18 meters through the late Eocene. The name means king lizard, a mistake. The naturalist Richard Harlan named it in 1834, certain he was holding a giant sea reptile. It was no reptile, it was a whale, and it still had legs, tiny ones, a complete set of hind limbs no bigger than a child's legs, dangling near the tail, far too small to walk on, far too small to swim with. They were the shrunken ghost of a leg, kept for millions of years for no clear reason. No one is sure what they were even for, a grip during mating maybe, or nothing at all. Evolution does not erase things cleanly. It leaves the receipts. For a long time, the textbook said whales only became giants recently, in the last few million years, when cold, crowded oceans finally made it possible. Then, in 2023, a team led by Giovanni Bianucci described a new fossil from Peru. They named it Pakicetus colossus. It was 40 million years old. Its bones were so dense and so swollen with mass that the team made a startling claim. Pakicetus, they argued, might have rivaled a blue whale in sheer body weight. That claim is disputed. A 2024 reassessment put its mass far lower. But even the cautious estimate is huge and 40 million years too early. The neat ladder, land animal, then swimmer, then giant, refuses to stay neat. Nothing planned its way into the ocean. It stumbled in, and the ocean kept the experiments that floated. For 20 years after Gingerich pulled that skull off the Pakistani hillside, one question stayed open. If Pakicetus was a whale, what was a whale actually related to? The answer arrived in 2001, and it came from the ankle. Two teams published within months of each other, Gingerich and his colleagues in the journal Science, Thewison and his team in Nature. Both had finally recovered the foot bones of these early whales. One bone settled it. The astragalus, the ankle bone, had a strange double pulley shape. That shape is a signature. It belongs to exactly one group of mammals on Earth, the artiodactyls, the even-toed, hoofed animals, cattle, pigs, camels, and closest of all, the hippopotamus. The match was not a guess. The shape of that ankle is unmistakable, and the molecular biology agreed. The genes of living whales sit right beside the genes of hippos. Two completely different kinds of evidence, the bone and the DNA, pointed to the same animal. A single ankle bone rewrote the textbook. Whales are not just distantly descended from some land mammal, they are hoofed animals. The blue whale is, in its anatomy, a cousin of the hippo that walked into the sea and never came back. Gingerich had been right that the skull was a whale's, and wrong about almost everything else. Not because he was careless, because the one bone that settled it was the bone he did not have in 1981, which brings us back to those two small bones drifting inside the blue whale. They are not useless leftovers. They are not junk. They still anchor the muscle the animal needs to breed. The last working job of a hoofed ancestor's hips, the one task evolution never found a reason to delete. 50 million years after a wolf-sized hunter waded into the Tethys, the largest animal that has ever lived still carries its grandfather's ankle in its blueprint, and its grandfather's hips in its flesh. The skull Gingerich read wrong was never a land predator. It was the sea's first draft. The whale was not the first animal to walk off the land and into the sea. Tens of millions of years before Pakicetus waded into the Tethys, another creature had already made the crossing. Not a mammal, a reptile. It traded its legs for paddles. It grew longer than a school bus, and it became the apex predator of the Cretaceous Ocean, ruling the water for millions of years before the first whale even existed. The same returned to the sea. A completely different kind of hunter, and this whole story was about getting an animal wrong. The skull Gingerich read as a land predator. The mosasaur is the same. The way it killed, the thing every documentary shows you, we got that wrong too. So here is the question the next entry opens on. What does a seagoing lizard, longer than a bus, actually do to the prey it catches? Tethys Codex.